everyone. Welcome to GlideFast On Air. I'm Lauren Jankowski, the Marketing Manager at GlideFast, and I'll be moderating today's webinar, Optimizing Service Portal Search Results. Before we get started, I'd like to give you some background information on GlideFast. GlideFast Consulting is a consulting firm that is dedicated exclusively to ServiceNow. As an Elite ServiceNow Partner, our expert team of developers and architects have worked on both sides of the table, the customer side and the consulting side. Our company was founded by ServiceNow architects, and we're proud to have a team of over 200 experienced consultants, an average CSAT score of a 4.8 out of 5, and many more accolades, as you can see here. Before we get started, we'd like to share about GlideFast's goal of raising $50,000 for the Joe Andruzzi Foundation. This foundation provides financial assistance to families battling cancer and the unexpected costs that comes with treatment. As a cancer survivor himself, GlideFast's very own CEO, Michael Lombardo, has committed to matching up to $25,000, and GlideFast Consulting as a company will also match up to $25,000 for a total donation of $100,000 to help pediatric and adult cancer patients. If you or your company would like to contribute to helping us reach this goal, we will send a link with more information following today's webinar. I'm excited to hand things over to our presenter for today, Jeff Pierce, a ServiceNow architect at GlideFast. I'll be monitoring the Q&A throughout today's session, so please send in any questions as they arise, and we'll do our best to answer them. Now, I'd like to hand things over to Jeff Pierce.
Thanks, Lauren. All right, welcome everybody. Happy Thursday. It's a beautiful spring day. I'm Jeff. I'm an architect with GlideFast. I've been working on the ServiceNow platform for a little over 10 years, and I'm here in sunny Miami, and happy to be with you today. Today, we're going to be covering optimizing search results in Service Portal. So we're going to walk through just a couple of chapters. The first is we're going to cover the basics on how search works in Service Portal. Second, we're going to talk about how to fine-tune your relevancy so that you can clear some of the clutter and noise out of your search results list and get what matters to the top. And then third, we're going to take a dive into some of these widgets that actually do the searching and look at how we can make those more pleasant to work with for your users. All right. So first off, let's talk search engines. In Quebec, we've got two options. Well, I don't like to talk, we don't really call these options, right? Zing is your default, right? I don't call that an option. That's your old reliable. It's got flexible relevancy tuning, it's powerful, it's configurable. Then you got AI search in Quebec now, right? That is the next level is including all kinds of fancy fun stuff that I can't wait to get into, but we're not talking about that today, right? We're talking about the old reliable Zing and how to work with that. Search AI or AI search is pretty awesome, but don't worry, we'll get into that one of these days soon. Okay, so how does search work in Service Portal? Of course, you've got your tables and fields, right? That's what's getting searched. For a table to be eligible to be searched, it's got to have this text index box checked, right? And then you're able to use that generate text index link down there. And then you've got your fields, right? So the second screenshot just shows a couple of field entries in the dictionary. And you can see this first one in the outage field, it's got that TS weight equals 50. We're going to be looking into that. So that's another way at the field level that we do some configuration and enable searching. So we're just going to cover that high level for the moment. We'll get more into it down the road here in this webinar. But the second component that's involved in making search work in Service Portal are search sources. So these are records that get attached to your Service Portal. So right here in this image, we're looking at a related list on a portal record, and we've got a few search sources defined for that. These search sources define what your templates, how your results are going to look. What logic you use for actually getting those results, how your filters are created, and then you have settings for the type ahead widget. And so we'll get into that definitely quite a bit here. All right, and then finally, you've got your search widgets, right? This is what your user actually interacts with when they're performing searches. So we're going to be diving into kind of all three of these areas here. So let's first talk about relevance, right? Now that we got some basics out of the way, let's talk about what makes a search result relevant. Well, we're going to talk about two strategies. One is just making sure that your content is good, right? This isn't so much a technical solution as it is a process and strategic solution. But the second one, that's definitely a technical solution. But first, let's talk about grooming your content. So what I mean by that is garbage in, garbage out, right? If you're going to make them look through a pile of garbage, expect them to find garbage. So groom your catalog, your knowledge base, whatever it is that your users are searching. Make sure that is nice and clean and ready to be searched. So some things to consider there are your use of verbs. I see a lot of inconsistent use of verbs or maybe let's just talk about the use of verbs in general. And what I mean by that is like naming a catalog item, request a laptop, or where your titles aren't necessarily just the name of the thing, but you're getting a little more descriptive with it and describing a use case. That's okay as long as you're very consistent with it. But we'll talk a little bit more about this later too, about just unneeded words. But that's just one thing to consider is look through all of your naming and your descriptions and everything, and consider, make sure that your call to action pattern is consistent, right? If you're going to say request this in one and not in another, decide what your strategy is so that it isn't too inconsistent for your users. Next one is use consistent naming patterns. So I've got a couple of examples here. So say you've got chargers in your catalog. You've got a couple that say charger-iPhone, charger-Samsung, and then you've got MacBook power adapter, right? That's an inconsistent pattern. You've got the proper noun coming after in some cases, and it's coming first in others. So develop a good pattern for, how you're going to formulate these and make sure you follow that. And then lastly here, be consistent in your spelling and punctuation and stuff. This one should be a no-brainer, but you just wouldn't believe how often I still see inconsistency. So, things that maybe are compound words or hyphenated, things like that. Just make sure you know what the right way to do it is, and you implement it throughout all of your content. All right, so that's being consistent. Next, step in grooming your content is to use your fields wisely. I also see fields just terribly underutilized in many of my customers. Some do a great job, don't get me wrong. But the name, remember, you don't have to describe everything about it in the name, but at the same time, you got to be uniquely descriptive. So give good thought into the name, and remember, equally important to the name is an image. Don't underestimate the power of having a good image that we can show in lists along with this, because that's going to draw. Users will identify with an image much more quickly than they will with text. Okay, so short description. Don't just rephrase the name. I see that all the time too. Come up with something meaningful. Find, your user's perspective and describe it in that way. Even get feedback from your users on how they would describe things, or what they would hope to see in descriptions to make them more meaningful. But really, don't just rephrase how you named it. That's not what this is for. And then obviously meta tags. But I say obviously because I live in this, right? But maybe not for you. You got the meta field. That's for you to put in alternate spellings, related words. You're also known as terms, right? So that your users who are going to be searching for something by what they know it as can still get to it by what you know it as long as you've got those meta tags in there. You know, that does take some time, but it's definitely worth it, and it improves the quality of your search immensely. All right. So after using your fields wisely, my last suggestion here for grooming your content would be to get minimal, right? So consolidate if you can. If you've got content that is extremely similar, but just differs in one small aspect, you know, maybe you can consolidate those. Or, you know, maybe there's some consolidation of catalog items that could occur. That's all going to be depending on your content, of course. But it's always worth doing a you know, continual exercise of consolidation. The second one, remove everything that's implied, unnecessary, and redundant. And I'm meaning really from your shorter fields, names, short descriptions. You can use a description field to get as crazy as you want, but with your shorter ones, you want those to be just as clean and as minimal as possible. If a word does not add value, get it out. Okay, and then the last one, in getting minimal, I would call this decentralizing power, meaning if you're just having one admin be in control of all of this stuff, of maintaining descriptions and meta tags and all of that, that's you're limiting yourself. Try to give more power to your business partners to maintain their own catalogs and maintain their own knowledge bases. You know, train them if you need to, but you'd be surprised how many willing volunteers you have to groom content if you just allow yourself to delegate a little bit. All right. So that's what we've got for grooming content, right? I always like to get a little strategy and process in there before we jump into the nerdy technical stuff. So everyone who's here for actually how you do stuff, here we go. All right. So let's now talk about fine tuning your search relevance. So let's understand the query score. When, all right, well, we'll work on this in steps here. First, let's look at this IR_query score. What is that? That's a glide record property that allows you to see what score each of your results got, right? Every search result gets a score as to how relevant it was to your keyword. And this is the property that stores it. All right, I'm going to jump into ServiceNow and we're going to start looking at some stuff. So give me just a quick moment to change the way that I'm sharing my screen. All right, and we're back. Okay, here we are in ServiceNow. So let's take a look at how that IR query score property is used. So I'm going to go into my search source. Remember, we talked about those search sources. I introduced you to that. Here's the catalog one. This is the out-of-the-box search source for Service Catalog. And we're not going to get into everything right now. We'll get into these little by little, but right now we're going to go into the data source. Right? So this determines how data is returned or gathered for this search source. It is a scripted one. So of course you've got a script. Well, if we scroll a little the ways down here, you'll see line 44, item.score, and you can see the property there, IR query score. So this means that when we actually do a search, if you know, we can log the scope or look in our panel, and I'll show you a Chrome extension to help with this, and we can actually see the scores of all of our search results. So let's go ahead and take a look at that right now. We'll do a search for laptop.
Jeff, would you mind zooming in a little bit?
Oh, sure. I'll make my screen a little bit smaller.
Perfect.
How's that?
That's a little better.
Want me to go even smaller?
Let's see, just so it's a little easier for everyone to see.
How about that? That should be better, huh?
That's better. Yep.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for telling me that. All right. All right. Let me, I forgot I still had my old theme in there. I don't want to spoil a surprise just yet. So give me a quick second to change something. I don't want to give it away. And I'm just going to take my style sheet out of here. Because in a little bit down the road here in this webinar, I'm going to show you how to do some nice styling here. You know what, though? It's not even there. Oh, you know what? Let me just give it a good refresh. I think that's all it takes. Okay. All right, so let's do a search for laptop. All right, and this is our type ahead widget, right? This is an out of the box widget. Well, what we have here is actually your homepage search widget, which embeds the type ahead widget. But so we'll do a search. And now one thing I can do to get the scope here is I can, well, I'm on a Mac, so I do control click, and I'm going to say log to console scope.data. And then I can come over to my console in my browser inspector and see here's the scope data that just got spit out to me. And I can drill into that. And eventually I'll get down to my results. Here we go. And I can see for each one now, look, there's the score property. So this one got a score of 1,018. That was the first one in the list. We go down to number 7. That got a score of 1. Big difference. So one of these is extremely relevant. As you get down the list, they get much, much less relevant. Yeah, because you're looking at these and you're like, well, what do these have to do with a laptop, right? So we'll get into fixing that with this. But that's the first thing to understand is that score property, right? Because as we start to fine tune the relevancy, you're going to want to monitor this score and see how it goes up and down for certain things. So I showed you one way of seeing the scores, right? That's logging the scope.data to your console. Another way is, and this is actually the way I like because it just gives you a lot more freedom in general, is I have a Chrome extension that I really recommend that you get. It's called NGInspect for Angularjs. And what it allows you to do is to select an element on your page, right? I'm selecting that first search result, and now that gives me an AngularJS panel, and I can drill into the element right there, and it's super handy. And I can see the score there too. So this is it right here, NGInspect for AngularJS. I highly suggest that. So that's 2 ways of seeing your score, right? And that the out of the box search source for catalog, as you saw, that already had it in there, but you can make use of that. Okay, so how is the score actually determined? I'm not going to go into great detail on this right now, but this is, whoops, I don't want to edit that. Let's go take a look at that. The ServiceNow documentation is perfectly adequate. That'll educate you very well on how the search actually works. Actually, where is it? The one of these will actually show you, the process it goes through to, determine the scores and everything. Actually, is it this one? Yeah. So like I said, I'm not going to go into this here because this is sleep material, right? And we'll be here all day. So, but just so you know, that's there. That's this all tells you the science behind how the scores are generated. But we do have a little bit of control over how the scores are generated, right? Because we can influence the weight that the different fields have. via the TS_weight attribute. So let's go take a look in the dictionary at the entries for the SC cat item table. And I'm using catalog for a lot of these examples, right? Service catalog, but these are all just as equally as applicable to knowledge base or other content tables. All right, so you can see here's the attributes field here. By default, each field is worth 1 point as Zing goes through and does its search indexing or its scoring. But then here, let's go. Oh wait, sorry. Let's check out some of these fields here. So like the category. Oops, wrong field. You can see in there, I don't know if you can see it, but here, let's open it up here. There it is. So that one's worth 10 points with the TS weight attribute. Your name is going to be worth a much more. Where is name? Let's see. See, that one's worth 25 right there at the beginning. So you can go in and adjust these because, this might not make sense in your organization with the way that you're using your content. I'll show you an example here. So here's a sample scorecard. I've done this with many of my clients where there's just a lot of noise in the results, and it didn't make sense why some were getting returned higher than others. And what we found is that it was, across tables, especially service catalog to knowledge base, this isn't really consistent, right? You've got some fields in the knowledge base weighted much differently. So the solution is to implement a consistent weighting schema across all of your fields. So like what I've done here is if your keyword is found in your name or the meta or in your short description, those are worth a lot of points, right? Anywhere from 15 to 30. If it's found in the category or the catalogs, it's worth 10. In the description, it's worth 2. It's not very important down in the description because that's where you get a lot of your noise, right? So we want to make sure that if say like I'm searching for add a new ServiceNow account, I don't want everything that has ServiceNow in the description to show up in my result. That's just going to be so much work. I mean, so many results. Right. I at least certainly don't want them high in the list. So our description, that's going to get, way fewer points. So after you implement your weight schema by adjusting all of your TS weight attributes on the appropriate fields, you're then going to have to run your index again. You're going to, because how the search works is an index is run for the table. I'm not going to go into everything that happens there, but you really only have to do that once, so the only time you're going to do this is if I created a new table and it's a custom table and it wasn't previously searched and I now want to make it searchable, or I've gone through and I've adjusted the search weight attributes. Those are the only times you want to do the generate text index, or that you need to. And keep in mind, this has to be done independently in each instance. That doesn't get captured in an update set. Okay. All right. So that's an overview of how you're going to fine tune your search relevance, right? It's really all about this TS weight attribute and just making sure that your weights on each field really make sense. And it may take some fiddling around and, trial and error. Don't expect to get it totally right the first time.
Great. And Jeff, while we're on the topic of the weight attributes, someone did just have a question. How do you weight results from one table over the other? Example, catalog over knowledge. Is that search source configuration?
Nope, this is all by table, right? So your search source is not going to Now, you could get fancy in your search source and do some additional weighting logic, right? But you'd have to script all that yourself. That might be a little overkill. But no, Zing is going to calculate them all just according to the same logic, right? It's going to take how many, it looks at what fields the keyword was found in and how many times it was found there, and then it creates a score based on that. There's also some other factors as well. And then it's going to multiply it by your weight. So, if you're always having knowledge articles show up above your catalog items and it's annoying the heck out of you, you're going to want to balance those weights out, right? Something in your knowledge articles are weighted too high and something's not weighted high enough in your catalog. Does that make sense? Hopefully.
Yes, you said got it. Thanks.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Okay, so yeah, give the right weight to the right fields. That's the first thing, or the second thing there. Next, consider a threshold. So remember that this one we were just looking at here, where I'm looking for a laptop and I get all of these knowledge articles that are like, yeah, right, like I'm really looking for this if I type in laptop. This is where a threshold comes in handy, because I could say, I don't want anything to show up in this list unless it gets a score of at least like 5. Because if we're looking at this schema that I just had here, it's going to have to be mentioned in the description 3 times at least in order for it to get 5 points. So that way, if you've got knowledge articles that just have something randomly listed in the description and it doesn't really relate to what it is, it's only going to get 2 points then, and it's not even going to show up in your search, which that could be highly effective if you've got a lot of content and you're getting a lot of noise. That threshold is going to be very effective. So how would you implement that threshold? That's actually quite easy. So let's go back to our search source and into our catalog. In our data source, so this is where we take the query term, which is that, and we go find the related catalog results for that term, right? So we're not going to go into all of that, but that's what all that is. We're going to go down here to where we push this item to the results array, because this is what's getting returned back to our search widgets. And if you wanted to implement a threshold, well, first of all, what I would suggest is create some kind of system property, right? So that you can maintain that number outside of code. But then I would just do something like this. If my item.score is greater than whatever that property was, GS, and it's always when you're in a webinar that you can't remember the most fundamental things, like how you do get a stinking property. What is it? Just get property, right? Yeah. Okay. It's like forgetting what your name is when a pretty girl asks you. All right. And then what would this be? Just be like portal.search threshold or query. You'd want to make that more descriptive. Query score threshold, something like that. And so you would only want to push it to your results if your score was greater than whatever you decided that threshold would be. And so you would just implement this into each of your search sources, and there you go. You've now got a threshold. Yeah, but play with that carefully, because you don't want to clip content that you don't want to clip. So that threshold should be very low. But that's how you do it. All right. Okay. All right. So that's what I've got for you for fine-tuning your relevance. Hopefully I've given you a couple tools here to get into it and understand how it works, and you can start doing that on your own. As you can see, it's not highly complicated. But let's move on now to actually making the appearance and stuff work a little bit better with these search widgets. So when we think about the search widgets, I'm just going to be talking about two today. There's the type ahead search widget, which is, I consider that's your front line of support for your organization, in your portal. I think everyone should be directed to search the very first thing, if they're looking to consume content. And the second is the search page. So if you don't see what you're looking for in the type ahead, then you do the full search, and then you have more options and more features, right? So what we're going to be talking about is refining what shows up in the type ahead search, right? We don't necessarily want everything that shows up on the search page to be in the type ahead search. We're going to improve the appearance of it, and then we're going to make some improvements on the search page. All right. Okay. So let's refine what shows up in the drop-down results, or at least let's talk about how to, and why would we? So think about here. Let's just go over here. If this is our like I said, our front line of support, how can we help? And they're going to type in here, and we sorry, I get a lot of ideas and I get sidetracked. Let's stay focused. We want to be able to get them to the content that they're most likely looking for, right? So let me just cut to a use case. Let's say I'm looking for an incident. I might not want to show all my closed incidents in here, or a user's closed incidents. I might only want to focus on anything that's open. Or there might even be entire catalogs that you don't want to show up here, just so that you can keep this as clean and effective as possible. So there are a couple of ways of doing that. One is in the search source. Let's take a little, we'll take a little more close of a look at the search source now. You'll see this tab here, type ahead. If you click that, this is where all your type ahead settings are for the search source. So the first one, just enable, means I can include the search source in my service portal, but I can leave it out of the type ahead dropdown, so that it only shows up when I'm on the search page. That would be, that's what this toggle is for, right? So if I take that off, those other ones disappear because they're irrelevant. This is not going to show up in the type ahead dropdown. So this is really nice if you say a search source for open tickets and a search source for closed tickets. Your closed tickets, you can disable this, and then your open tickets, you can go ahead and include. All right, so these next fields here, advanced type ahead config. If I deselect that, this is just going to use the out-of-the-box template for displaying that result. If I check it, I can provide my own template. And I always like to do this, well, because we'll get into this next, but I like to make my results prettier. And that's how you do it. Okay, so that's the first way. You can restrict your search sources by this checkbox right here. If you just want to include something from search altogether. I'm sorry, from the type ahead search. Now say you want to just exclude it from a particular page. Now you wouldn't want to do that from the home page, because from the home page you want to search everything. But say you get into the request catalog now, and you got a search box here. Now here, if I'm looking in the catalog, it might make sense that I want to stay. Here, let me close that down now. It might make sense that I want to stay in the catalog. So if you go to the instance options for the type ahead search widget, you'll see this one down here, contextual search sources. I can choose from any of the, from my search sources, which ones that I want it to be limited to, right? So if I now do a search from this page, it's only going to search my catalog's search source, not the others. We'll just look at a couple of the other options on here. So limit, of course, you can limit the number of results. That could be useful. I don't think it's that important though. And these others are really just for more presentation. The title's important though, because that's where you create your placeholder if you want to do something that's not just search. Say you want to say, well, I'm getting ahead of myself again. We'll get there. All right. Okay. So
one question.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Do you create a copy of the search sources, or do you update the out of the box?
Oh, yeah. Create a copy. Don't go messing with the out of the box one. It lets you. Well, to be honest, there's versioning. So if you want to go back to the first version, that's easy. So go ahead and edit the out of the box one. But just maybe as a best practice, make a copy so you've got your own.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. So this last one here, enhanced guidance. This is a little more of an advanced approach. And I'm not going to show exactly, I'm not going to walk through all the steps for doing it, but this is the concept right here, right? So say we are including incidents or your tickets in your search. And I'm looking for a ticket that I submitted called problem with my laptop. That was what I described it as. So I'm excluding closed tickets from my search, right? We're just saying that's the scenario, right? But so what I've done here is I've updated this search, the type ahead template, so that it instructs the user that, hey, if you're looking for closed tickets, or if you want to include closed tickets in your search, click here. And then clicking there just takes them to the search page with their query, because there they'll be able to search everything, including their closed tickets. But this list is just limited to open tickets. So this is a very nice little feature, and you can actually use this to your advantage in many ways, not just with closed tickets, but you can give all kinds of helpful instructions to your users here just by including a little header in the drop down. So how would you do that? For that one, you're going to have to, well, that one, probably the best way to do it is to clone that type ahead search widget. Normally I like to be able to do everything without having to clone a widget, but that is a little more of an advanced one to get that in there. You would need to clone that widget so that you can go into actually, you know what? You might not even need to clone the widget. There are templates here, I think. Let's let those load. Templates, I think it's the type ahead pop up. That was the next one. Actually, no, that was it. Yeah, it's actually this right here. You don't need to clone the widget. You would just need to edit this template here. Now, if you wanted to do a custom version of this template, then you would have to close. I mean, if you want to leave this one as it is and not mess with anything out of the box, create a new one, so this one is my type ahead pop-up. In that case, you would have to clone the type ahead search widget then, because you would need to be able to edit this so that you can change which template it calls. But I think there's nothing wrong with going ahead and just updating this template if you want to. And so you can see this is where each search result gets printed out. See this? Where's the NG repeat? There it is. For every match in all of our matches, it's going to print this out. So you could put one right above here that was doing kind of what I did. Say whatever you want here, and then put a link in, and it's going to show up. All right, so that's how you do that. Let's see here. Let's move on. What's next? All right, let's improve the type ahead appearance. Because let's discard. Let's go look at that again. Right, we're doing good. Service portal looks good out of the box, nice and spacious. Things look good. Let me do a search. Oh, this leaves a lot to be desired. This feels like they almost forgot to finish building it. So let's finish building this for ServiceNow. Now, I'm not going to go through every line of this because this would take us quite well. We got 20 minutes left. Well, here, I'll tell you what, we'll do a little bit of it here just in the browser so you can kind of see the path that I took, but I've got all this CSS ready to go. So we'll just drop it in, and especially if it starts to not work on us. All right, so first thing I'd like to do is just give this a little space, right? It's like, why are they so crammed together? So of course, these changes I'm making are just right here in the browser. But let's see here. Let's add a new style and whoops, we'll do drop down menu li. So first, let's give them some padding. Boom, already starting to feel better. Let's see. Let's say I wanted to. Let's give it a little shading. Drop down dash menu li. Let's see if I can do this from memory. Nth child. We want the even ones. Background. Ooh, even better now. Oh, one more. All right. So this is starting to look a lot better, right? A little more spacious. We can see them more. But what about these icons? I can barely see them. That square white background is just nails on a chalkboard for me. I don't like it. All right, so I'm not going to type all that out now. Let me go ahead and I'll show you the CSS that I wrote, and maybe we'll just walk through that. That'll be made a little easier. All right, what did I call that? Search styles. All right, yeah, so you can see I started to do a little bit of this in the browser there, right? I gave every other row a shaded background, give a little more space. Now these are so that the text show up better, that they show up like lined up in the middle, and it's going to help it wrap properly. All right, this is everything that I applied to the icons in the images to make them appear better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them a background of white so that we don't get that strange clipping, and then I'm going to like make it a circle. And so essentially I'm creating a little like circle tile for it to live inside of here is what I'm doing. And then then the hover over that blue, that's got to go, right? I don't like that at all. So that's what we're doing here. I'm taking away the blue. I'm just saying keep it the same color. Let's just change it a little bit. All right. So I've got that style sheet ready to go. So all I'm going to do is go to my portal, and I'm going to change my theme from stock back over to search demo that has that style sheet in it. And let's see what kind of improvements we've got. Laptop. Oh, much better. Much better. Isn't that beautiful? And you see as I go over it now, you can still see it. Like I just changed the font weight a little bit. That's all we need to do. We don't need to make it blue, and we know which one we're looking at. We just want a little acknowledgement that it knows we're looking at it. I want to know that you know that I know I'm looking at you. So, and then you can see these icons much better, right? With the circle tile. Now that doesn't look like something totally unfinished that my nephew built. Okay, what next? What do we got next? We improved the styles. Oh yeah, let's include some short descriptions here, right? We got room for short description. So that's going to be easy. Let's go back into our search source. Catalogs. Okay, and we're going to go to our type ahead template, right? So this is what's determining what shows up here, right? That's the HTML template for it. And we're going to leave all of this as it is, but we're going to add something in. So this is where our actual text prints out. And here, I'm going to jump ahead just a couple slides because I did include all this stuff because I know somebody's going to ask, right? There it all is for you. But here is a little HTML that I'm going to drop into that search source. So I'm going to replace this line with that. All right. So what did I do? So I just added a few more spans here because I wanted to drop in the short description right below it if there is a short description, right? So that's what this is. I'm putting a break in if there is a short description. And then if there is, I'm going to include that there. So let's go ahead and save that. Oh, I also, one thing I did here too is, see that I added a class to this just because I needed to throw a little CSS at it to help make sure that everything wrapped appropriately. But let's look at it now. What happens when we include the short description? Oh, that looks nice. Now we can see more info about it. Okay. What next? I feel like there's one other thing. Oh yeah, and if you're concerned about what this looks like, mobile. Oh, that's not what I want here. Let's go here. All right, so you've got that. Beautiful, right? What an improvement over out of the box. Much better. All right. Okay, so let's, what are we going to look at next? What did we do? I lost my slide. Here we go. Okay, and then the last one, my last suggestion here for improving the type ahead appearance is to use strategic placeholder text. So let's go to the home page for that one. How can we help? How can we help? A little redundant, isn't it? Let's go into instant options. This should be something like, and it's kind of weird how you got to write this, right? But so pass it as an object. Title is search for tickets, services, items, and helpful articles. That's the type of thing that should be there, right? Tell the user what they're going to be searching so that when they click in there, it's not just blind. They don't think that they're looking for their grandma's phone number. All right. Okay, what next? All right, so here's a couple of other style examples that I had, right? Just different ways of doing this. You know, this one here, right here, the example that's an incident. So I was able to, you know, include more fields from the incident, like the state and all that stuff. All right, so now let's talk about the search page. The search page itself. So when I'm talking about the search page, if I do laptop and hit enter, we're now on the search page, right? Okay, so the search page, I'm not going to repeat all of the stuff that I just said about the type ahead, but a lot of that stuff applies here too, right? There's some things that we could do to clean it up. Like I don't like the way that the image and the labels are crammed right up against each other, right? There, we could do some cleanup here, but I'm not going to go through all of that right now. What we are going to look at is, let's look at this highlighting here, right? This eyesore, this yellow smudge on my page. Let's do something better with that. So first, let's do it here in our browser. Let's see if we can find something that looks better. Okay, so let's talk about what's doing that first of all, because that's kind of interesting. See this right here? So I'm back in the search source. I'm on my type ahead template. See that NGbind HTML? So I'm passing into that the label, right? What I want to print there, but then I'm following it up with this service, or forgive me if I use the right terminology, service directive, whatever that is, UIB type ahead highlight, and you passed with the query term, And what that does for you is it highlights, or it applies a class to that portion of the search result label that contains the query. All right, so that's how that yellow is happening there. And you can see that. So what it does is it takes and then puts a span around the part that, well, what your query is, your query term, and then it gives it the class highlight mark. So all we got to do is do some better styling here. We don't need to do a background. We definitely don't need to do that. So let's just, here, actually, let's just do some new ones here. Go ahead and keep that in there. Span.highlight mark. So the background color, what if we were to do an inherit? So we'll do the inherit. So that essentially nullifies what this is trying to add to it. All right, but let's make it more bold. There we go. See this padding? It definitely doesn't need any padding. Padding 0. And the color. Well, the color, decide what you like, right? I mean, pick something nice. Hopefully in your theme. But, you know, orange isn't bad. You know, maybe something a little darker. But so you're going to take this CSS, and there are a few places you could put this. I could put it in the same style sheet that I started for all that other stuff. That's one place I could put it. I could also put it here in the page. So let's go to the page in Designer. And I'll talk about the drawbacks of each of these in a moment. Well, actually, let's just do it as we go. Okay, so if I want to put it in this style sheet, that style sheet that I already started, you saw that is part of my theme that gets applied to the whole portal, right? But just this portal, because this is the only portal that I have that theme applied to. If I do it at the page level, I can do it for this page no matter what portal it's used in. All right, so I could put this all right here on the page specific CSS. And now let's refresh. See, it's still there because I actually it's not, what happened? It was bold for a second there. You see that? I don't know if you all saw that. The font weight 600. I guess that is 600. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So since I put it at the page level, you don't need the theme now. So this is, you know, any portal that uses this page is going to get that. And then of course I could also I could clone the widget and do it in the widget CSS, but that's only if I'm going to be making major changes to this widget, which I'm not. So, is that it? That's, I mean, those are your most straightforward ways of applying this CSS. But as you can see already, so much better look at than that yellow brick. Okay, so second topic here, and we're going to wrap this up, is the using the search sources as the main filters, right? So see here on the left-hand side, we've got the search sources. This corresponds directly to the list of search sources in my portal. So if I go to the portal, service portal, go down to my related lists, there they are in that order, right? So I like to use these as your first line of filtering. Sometimes it makes sense to split your knowledge base out into a couple of search sources or your catalogs. And then these can become very effective filters. And then include these only if needed, right? This can really overwhelm a user if they don't need to use this. So these faceted searches, they're great, but they only if you've got the use case for it, really. Otherwise, I encourage just using your search sources as your filters, which it does out of the box. All right. Well, that concludes it. Man, right on time. Yeah, so this is the slide. Of course, if you, I don't know if we're sending this presentation out or not, but you can at least pause it here and you can read in here. It's not that complicated, right? But let's take some questions now. We're with a few minutes left.
Yep, I think we have time for about 1 or 2 questions. And
All right.
we have one here. If we run the generate text index in our production instance and then clone it over to subprod, will subprod have the new index?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. And here's another question for you. Will the new AI search replace all of this?
No, not at all. Because even if you use AI search, all of these principles that we just went through still apply, right? You're still going to have to present your results. You're still going to have to groom your content. All of the stuff we just went through, I really believe it still applies. AI search is going to add on some really cool stuff, but it doesn't replace what we're doing with Zing, really.
Awesome. All right, well, I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar, and we hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you, Jeff, for that awesome presentation. And to see more sessions just like today, just visit our website at glidefast.com to register for more. And if you have any questions, please reach out to info@glidefast.com, and we'll do our best to get those answered. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the day.